You're 7 years old, sitting at boarding school, nervously waiting for the holidays to begin. Your friends have all been picked up, their parents arriving in cars with hugs and food. One by one, the school grows emptier and quieter. But you're still sitting there, clutching your little suitcase, wondering why your father is late. Maybe he got caught in traffic, maybe he forgot, or maybe the entire government has just been overthrown, and your dad, a minister of state, has been thrown into detention. That's not your everyday "my dad forgot to pick me up" story. That's John Dramani Mahama's childhood, and that's how his memoir begins, with the kind of first coup d'etat story that none of us can really top. Unless, of course, your dad was a government minister in 1960s Ghana and you too ended up stranded at Akamoda School because of a coup. If not, sorry, your story doesn't quite measure up. John Dramani Mahama's memoir, My First Coup d'etat Memories from the Last Decades of Africa, takes us on a journey from his childhood to his postgraduate studies in Russia. While it's a memoir of his own life, it's also a book about Ghana, Africa, and the turbulent history of coups, revolutions, and ideological struggles that shaped the continent during the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. His first major memory of politics intersecting with family life came in 1966. Ghana's first president, Kwame Nkrumah, was overthrown in a coup d'etat. Mahama's father, E.A. Mahama, was a minister of state in Nkrumah's government, and like many others, he was arrested and detained. For John, who was only 7 years old, the coup wasn't just about soldiers on the radio declaring the government has been overthrown. It meant being stranded at school with no one to pick him up. When he finally made it home, escorted by his schoolmother, what did he find? His family house under military guard, soldiers patrolling, uncertainty in the air. He and the poor woman who brought him there had to turn around and figure out another solution. That moment captures something essential about coups. They're not just political events, but deeply personal ones. They ripple through families and childhoods, disrupting lives in ways that history books don't always capture. And Ghana wasn't done with coups. The Mahama family would be touched again and again. During General Achiampong's coup in the 1970s, the effects were strangely mixed for the Mahamas. By then, John's father had been banned from public office for a decade, so he turned to farming. Thanks to Achiampong's Operation Feed Yourself and Operation Feed Your Industries, E.A. Mahama's rice farm flourished. He even won awards as one of Ghana's best farmers. His success brought him closer to Achiampong himself. But here's the catch. When Mahama's father offered Achiampong some fatherly advice, suggesting it might be wise to step down when the applause is loudest, the military leader didn't exactly take it as friendly guidance. Instead, he grew suspicious. And in classic coup-era fashion, E.A. Mahama found himself being invited for questioning. Nothing says thank you for your advice like being hauled in by soldiers. But the most consequential coup came in 1981, when Jerry Rawlings overthrew Hilla Liman's government. By this time, E.A. Mahama had become a key member of Liman's party. When Rawlings announced that certain people had to report to the barracks for their own safety, the Mahama children knew what that really meant: detention. Their father, who had sworn never to go back to prison, was whisked away into exile in neighboring Côte d'Ivoire. For the Mahama family, coups weren't just headlines. They were disruptions, detentions, and exiles. They shaped where they lived, what they ate, and how John himself grew up. Now you might think, okay, he must have had a rough childhood then. But that's where the book adds a layer of ambiguity. On one hand, compared to the average Ghanaian child, John Mahama lived a privileged life. His father was a minister, then a successful farmer. There was stability and comfort even amid political chaos. On the other hand, when you zoom in on his personal, individual experiences, his life was also quite average. He fell in love with the neighbor's daughter. He got sweaty palms and a racing heart when she walked by. He exchanged perfumed letters with her, reading them over and over again like each rereading would reveal a hidden secret. If you've ever had a crush as a teenager, you know exactly what he's talking about. In moments like these, Mahama's memoir feels less like the story of a politician and more like the story of any boy navigating childhood and adolescence.
Oh, it's so cute!
coup had other effects too. Because of political instability, Mahama moved from Accra to Tamale, changing schools along the way. And it was in secondary school at Ghana Secondary School that his interest in politics truly blossomed. He campaigned against Achiampong's union government, a system designed to eliminate political parties and consolidate power. His passion for politics was nurtured by a teacher, Mr. Wentham, who became his mentor and guide. Later at the University of Ghana, Mahama deepened his involvement. He ran for student leadership positions, losing one, winning another. He became secretary of the Student Representative Council, a role that allowed him to develop his leadership skills. But it was his time in Russia during postgraduate studies that brought his ideological journey full circle. Having embraced socialist ideals in Ghana, he went to the Soviet Union eager to see socialism in action. What he found was desperation. Long queues for food, shortages, and the grim realities of life under Soviet socialism. This direct encounter forced him to reconcile his idealism with reality. His father's rice farm and processing factory back home, capitalist ventures with profit motives, no longer looked like contradictions to his socialist leanings. Instead, he realized that the extremes of either capitalism or socialism wouldn't work. A balance was needed. At its core, Mahama's memoir is not just about his childhood or his father's political life. It's about Africa's turbulent decades, when coups, counter-coups, and ideological battles consumed entire nations. Countries lost valuable time in development, entangled in struggles over power and world influence. Yet, like all memoirs, this is selective storytelling. Mahama chooses what to share and what to leave out. And there are noticeable gaps. His time at Ghana Secondary School, apart from his relationship with Mr. Wentham, is glossed over. Secondary school, for many people, is where the most rebellious, mischievous, and unforgettable memories happen. But Mahama doesn't dwell much there. His years at the University of Ghana and his experiences in Russia also receive less attention than you'd expect. And then there's the biggest omission, his active political life. This memoir ends before Mahama becomes the political leader we know today. No details about his campaigns, his rise in politics, or the challenges of leadership, which means we're left hanging, waiting for a second book to cover those later years. Reading my first coup d'etat is like sitting down with someone who's seen both privilege and hardship, and who tells his story without arrogance. Mahama doesn't claim to be the only man with answers, nor does he present himself as the hero of every scene. Instead, he accepts the limitations of his knowledge and the fluidity of life. One key theme in the book is the way coups ripple through society. They don't just topple governments. They topple childhoods, friendships, dreams, and even love stories. They create psychological wounds that history books don't always record. Another theme is the balance between ideology and reality. Young Mahama was a socialist at heart, but in Russia, he learned that blind devotion to any ideology, whether socialism or capitalism, leads to disappointment. True progress requires moderation, adaptability, and a recognition that no single system has all the answers. And finally, the book reminds us of the value of humility in leadership. Many leaders fall into the trap of epistemic arrogance, believing only they know what's best for their country. Mahama instead invokes the Ghanaian proverb Duen Hui Kwan, let your thinking light your path. In other words, think carefully before acting, because decisions carry far-reaching consequences. John Dramani Mahama is more than just a memoirist. He's a writer, historian, journalist, communications expert, and seasoned politician. He served as a member of parliament, minister of communications, and vice president before eventually becoming the sixth president of Ghana's Fourth Republic. He assumed the presidency in 2012 after the sudden passing of John Evans Atta Mills, and then won election in December that year, serving a 4-year term. His memoir, My First Coup d'Etat, was published in 2012 by Bloomsbury, and it remains one of the rare examples of an African president writing his own story in his own words. So, if you've ever wondered what it's like to grow up in the shadow of coups, to balance privilege with ordinary childhood struggles, and to watch ideology collide with reality, John Dramani Mahama's My First Coup d'Etat is a book worth picking up. It's part history, part personal memory, and part reflection on what it means to grow up in a continent where politics isn't just on the news. It's in your home, your school, and even your love life. And let's be honest, anyone whose first "my dad didn't pick me up from school" story involves a full-blown coup definitely has a story worth telling. Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're interested in diving deeper into this book, I've left some links down in the description. You can use it to grab yourself a copy and keep the adventure going. And if you're in the mood for more great reads, don't go just yet. Click on one of the videos popping up right now that I think you'll love. And don't forget to give this review a like, leave a comment, or even subscribe if you'd like to see more. Every bit of support helps us grow this little community of book lovers. See you in the next one.